Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth Commune podcast on Metroid Prime Federation Force. My name is Daniel, and I am joined by two other members of our Federation Force group. They are Adrian
Hey,
and Greg.
Hello.
And the three of us have recently completed Metroid Prime Federation Force 100%. We are all experts at this game. We did the campaign as a three-player co-op experience on both normal and on hard. And just to recap, so far we've talked about the shooting and movement mechanics and the dynamics. We've talked about the types of gameplay and how these different types of gameplay are spread over the campaign. And in the last podcast, we talked about, we started talking about the levels in particular. And in the last podcast, we talked about Incursion, which was the game that which was the level that I had selected as my favorite. And for this podcast, we are going to explore Greg's favorite mission, which is Greg.
Blender.
And this is mission number 9. So we're going from what, about mission 20-ish back to mission 9. So back much earlier in the game. And we've chosen to talk about we've chosen to talk about Blender because it's very different from Incursion. If you remember, Incursion was just like a standard arena to arena based shooting mission, and Blender is a bit different, isn't it, Greg? How does Blender work? What's the objective of the mission?
The goal is to take a cart from the beginning of the level and push it along a track, like a trolley car, all the way to the end of the track. And there's an electrical storm in the area, so you will occasionally have to hide in these, I guess, pit stops along the track. So it's almost one big level because a lot of it takes place outside, and then there's just these little holes you gotta hide in along the way.
So there's a cart which is attached to a track, and the players have to push that cart through the track.
Yeah, and it's all and it's all outside. There's very few walls in the level.
Yeah, that's right. So where, as in the previous in Incursion, in the previous mission that we talked about, it's very clearly organized by rooms. Being set outside. That's not quite the same case for Blender. Although I think that, would you agree that we probably can break it down into discrete sections?
Yeah, it achieves a similar effect by having those pit stops.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's stuff. Particular enemies will spawn between two stopping points,
Mm.
and that would be your quote unquote room.
So basically, so you've got the carts on the track, you've got the safe houses, and you've got the storm. And so the mission objective is to get the carts from one side of the level to the other side of the level by pushing them along the track. That is, you like walk up to the cart and you push A, and you get into a fixed,
Grab onto it.
yeah, like you grab onto it, and then you get into a fixed pushing um, sort of state. And then, but every now and then there'll be an electrical storm which will spawn in, and when these electrical storms spawn in, you need to get the cart into a safe house. Otherwise, if the cart is left out on the track exposed when the storm comes in, then it will take damage, and if it takes too much damage, then then you've more or less ruined your chances at succeeding in the mission. You've more or less game over.
yeah. If there's two carts, but if both of them get destroyed, it's game over.
Yeah, and so you're saying as well, Greg, that there are obstacles, or sort of enemies and obstacles and things to get through between each safe house.
Yeah. So the storm will knock over pieces of architecture, and you'll have to blow them up. There are also switches in the track, and there's only one um, one course over the track that will get you to the end, and so any side paths will take you into a dead end. So you have to make sure that the track is switched onto the correct path, and then there are also enemies that will spawn in, like hoppers. There are hopper mounds, and varieties of pirates, and I think elites show up as well. Do I recall that correctly?
It doesn't look like it.
Oh, well, okay. There's pirates then.
Yeah.
So just for a bit more, just for a bit more context as well, Adrian. I mean, there's a central tension to each of the gameplay, or to each of the individual sections and each of these individual challenges. Can you talk a bit about what that tension is?
Main tension is trying to get the cart from safe house to safe house before you get caught in the open by an electrical storm. And we had some. We actually recorded some pretty close moments with those storms. Also, just the tension from the space pirates breaking the safe house because they can destroy them too.
Yeah, you've got those two factors. You've got the frequency of the storms. So there's sort of for each section that you have to move through, you've got like a time limit. At the same time, you've also got the enemies that come in and can decrease both your health and also the health of the card itself. So I think that sort of establishes like the premise of this mission. But yeah, and as we go through, I'm sure we'll talk about some of the strategies and things like that we used. So, Greg, did you want to take us through the first um, section? Well, I guess actually two questions. Is there anything else that you think that we need to say before we get onto the individual um, challenges? And if not, you can just lead us straight into the first challenge.
Well, I think one important thing to remember is that the number of people pushing the cart influences how fast it goes, and that counts drones. Drones can push the cart too.
Mm. Drones being the like the helper AI that that can assist you in single player.
Exactly. And um, so what we did when we played was people would hop on and off the cart as we had resources available, and so one of us would always be on the cart, but it might be moving pretty slow. And then once all the enemies were dead and switches flipped, then all three of us would be on the cart, and it would be going pretty fast. And so that influences how you get through those challenges. Anyway, as for the first section, it starts out. I think you get a siren pretty early on that there's a incoming electrical storm, and you can even see the wave on your screen, on your bottom screen, the map screen, and you can see the storm at any point uh, during the mission. And it seems like in our experience and in the videos we've watched, it seems like the storm is timed so that if you keep pushing the cart, then you just about get to the first safe house before the first electrical storm.
Yeah, I think that's really important that the timing is tuned so that in order to get from one safe house to the next, you need to be pretty decisive in the way that you move through. Like you really can't sort of dawdle. Um, and so, like the first time that well, the first few times actually that we played through this mission, we, it would take us a while to learn about the elements, like the individual parts of the challenges, so on the enemies that come in, switching the train tracks, and so, that just familiarizing ourselves with those game elements meant that we couldn't get through very quickly at the start, but after we played on the mission a few times, we could be more decisive.
Yeah, and that timing gets more ambiguous on the later segments as well. But on that first one, it seems like it's always timed so that the storm happens at pretty predictable time. And I believe that wraps up the entire first section.
And I think it's important too. I'm just saying that you start off in a sort of
A big
underground,
safe house.
yeah, like in this kind of cavern area, which is itself unprotected by this bubble. So you've yeah, and that houses both of the two trolleys that you need to push. So you've got a bit of time to play around um, and get used to the environment before you get into the main challenges. So like that first part is just a straight run, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't even have to. There is a switch on the track, but you don't need to use it.
Another important aspect of the feedback regarding the storm. So you've got the siren sound that goes off. What else do you have? The siren. You've got the uh,
The map
yep. You've got it on the map, and there's also
and the sky gets darker.
and my favorite effect, which I thought was really cute, is some of the rocks will begin to levitate.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
creepy.
Yeah, and once you're in a safe house as well, I mean, obviously you're protected, but there's also doors on the other side too, right? Like on the left and right, on the entrance and the exit.
Yeah, there's doors, so you got to make sure you're out of the doorway so that they actually close. And some of the safe houses can be pretty small, so you'll have to get in pretty tight. And then if a space pirate is around and they're shooting at you, then they can shoot out the doors or the windows.
So, Adrian, the second section.
Yeah. So, anyways, for this next section, one of the things that it deliberately does is it sets the track to go into the wrong direction. So while someone's pushing the cart, usually someone else needs to be, quick to change it. Or, the same person can do it, whatever. But that's what also brings the team dynamics in play, because this is the first real section where you're going to have to manage between moving the cart and defending it from the other space pirates.
Yeah, yeah. In the first section, like we can all just get behind the cart and push it, but we have to actually like
Yeah,
assign roles in the second part.
the first section's pretty safe. You push the cart, make sure the track doesn't go the wrong way, and it's just a straight shot. The timing for that first electrical storm is actually pretty tight. So there's a good chance you might actually have to pull it back and take it back to the start in order to get through it.
Mm.
But with this second section, aside from keeping it on the right track, clearing out any rubble should any happen to be in the way, the space parts are finally introduced. Now, for this first section, they're not too bad because they all come from the same general area, and that's on the cliff tops to the left.
I think it's interesting that so there, there are two elements that teach the player that they can both pull the or push the tram forwards and push the tram backwards. And the first of those uh, is the track itself. So, as you said, Adrian, it's set on default to take you down the wrong path. So you actually have to flick the switch and change it so that it's on the right path. The other thing is that is the timing is tuned in such a way that players on their first time through probably won't be able to get through this section um, on their first go. And so, if that's the case, there's a higher likelihood that they'll have to retreat back to the first safe house.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a nice little bit of teaching there.
Yeah, the only other thing to point out is in this first section, they're actually throwing both the pirates and the troopers. And just to remind everyone what the difference is, troopers are the ones that run up and try to slash you, while the regular pirates will just shoot at you.
Yeah.
In this first section, in this second section, there's actually more troopers than there are pirates.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, and the reason why they choose troopers is because troopers walk towards you and attack you, and if you've got people pushing the trolley, then that would mean that the troopers could also attack the trolley, and this would thus demonstrate that the trolley itself can take damage, which again reinforces another fundamental idea for this for the premise
Yeah.
of this mission.
Yeah, just melee in general is a more direct interaction where someone has to be in your vicinity. And if you're already focused on trying to get the cart from point A to point B, someone sniping you from a cliffside might not be too important, and so this is like something that actually really grabs your attention.
I mean, but even in saying that though, Greg, when you are pushing the cart itself, you can't do anything else. Like you can just see ahead of you.
So that if you can only see ahead and there's a pirate off to your left trying to shoot you from a cliffside, that might not be as apparent as a trooper.
It's interesting how
Yeah.
how pushing the cart makes you passive in some ways. I mean, it makes you passive in the sense that I mean, you can only push the cart, and so you can't, so that your role is preset in that sense. At the same time, though, you've you've got that direct visual information on the card itself, and so I think that encourages the communication between players because those pushing the cart can see the cart, um, and of course it does depend on what side of the cart that they're on as well. But the cart should be moving straight ahead, and most of the obstructions are straight ahead of the cart, unless you push past unless you push past some enemies or something like that, and therefore the default situation is that the people who push the cart have a good view of what's happening to the cart, and they're in the ideal position, and they can't do any other interactions, so they're in the ideal position to then communicate that information to those who are tracking ahead, and clearing the obstructions in the way.
So, like, some players have information, other players have, uh, like, the ability to shoot stuff, and so the people who have information need to share that with the people who can shoot stuff.
Yeah, because the people who can shoot, they're the ones who can defend the cart, but they don't have the information of the cart, and so there's this. Um, in teaching, we'd often call these sorts of activities like an information jigsaw. Two students have two different types of information, and they both need to share that information and sort of complete the jigsaw. And so the same effect is achieved here through the gameplay. And it's really simple and straightforward too, because it relies on the um, simple restrictions. Like if you're pushing something, then of course like you can't shoot and push at the same time. But like it's very grounded in the sense that you're just seeing something through the players, through your own perspective. And so yeah, it's very clever how roles are enforced through the natural restrictions, how roles are enforced and created through the natural restrictions of engaging in the challenge, i.e., pushing the cart. How did this particular dynamic work for us? As in, who did what and why?
Well, it's a good thing I have the video uploaded.
I was always pushing.
Yeah, same here. I was always pushing the cart generally, and if I saw a space pirate that was getting a little bit too close, I would often break away and then fire at them. Daniel, you actually scouted ahead to find out shortcuts or any rubble that was in the way.
Oh yeah, I did that for the third section. I remember that. But I think once we got good at it, Adrian, you were scouting primarily. Is that right?
I think I would be on and off between that when we were going for all gold and platinum.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
would be on and off between pushing the cart and scouting ahead and taking out any enemies.
I think Greg was a pusher and intel. Adrian, you were scouting, and I was pushing and also using the what's the item called, the shield bubble.
Yep. The other deal with the fact that they use troopers more than the regular pirates is that they have to run up to the cart too, in order to damage it, which means that you can see them coming ahead of time in order to defend the cart from it. Whereas if a pirate just shoots at the cart and given the cart you can move it only so fast, if they shoot at the cart, it's pretty much going to get hit. Unless all four of you are pushing at once.
So what you're saying is that the choice of enemy complements the natural constrictions and the player roles that are
Yeah.
created by that. Mm.
Yeah, and another way to say it is that it is easier to defend the cart from troopers than it is from the regular pirates because they're basically telegraphed by because they have to run all the way up to you. That entire time they're running is them telegraphing to the player that hey, you better defend the cart. Whereas a space pirate perched on top of the cliff, he can shoot that thing whenever he wants, which is why whenever you see the regular shooting pirates, if you see them, you better take them out quick so they don't damage the cart.
Mm. The other thing too is that because the troopers are moving um, from one point ahead of the cart, assumingly where the scout is looking out, because they're moving sort of past where the scout would be, they also act as a force which disrupts the scout's job. So in a sense, they can get behind the scout, and then again, that relies on us to communicate. Oh, this a trooper had snuck in from behind, and it makes it harder for the scout because they have to scout ahead, but also be aware of any obstacles, any enemies that break through their cone of vision.
Yeah, and if that doesn't work, you can always use the purple dots on the bottom screen, the map.
Of course, yep. Always have a lot of information at your fingertips. It's very clean.
They're literally at your fingertips. Because they're where you put your fingers.
Mm, Greg. So
Yeah.
what?
So for this third section,
Yeah, third section.
right. So the third section is the first where you see the path split. The safe house you can notice is on the left side. Of course, it depends on if you do this on normal or hard. In normal, they give you a super missile, and if a player hasn't spent the super missile yet, you can actually still go onto the left path to the safe house, continue onward, and then blow up the giant pillar in the way using that super missile.
Um,
Otherwise, in most other playthroughs, or the hard mode playthrough, going on the left path is actually a dead end.
so what you're saying is you can't actually break the structure that's in, well, the obstruction that's in the way on the left path, unless you have the super
Right,
missile on hard.
right. On hard, they don't give you a super missile. You can do it on normal because in the beginning of the mission, you can pick up a super missile. It's on hard mode where they don't give you any. That
Mm.
unless you get lucky with the mod chips in that little cave area, if you just continued straight north, there's really no way past there. You have to take the right passage, which the thing about the right passage is one, not only does it go cut straight through hopper mounds, there's also no safe house, so it's a longer stretch of you having to push the cart past a bunch of enemies. This is pretty much the most intense portion that you have to deal with as far as enemy count, because you have hoppers and space pirates,
Mm.
both varieties of space pirates.
I noticed that as you at the end of section 2, as you leave the safe house and you're walking into this third area, that the safe house on the left is visible in view, but the one on the
Mm-hmm.
right is not visible. You have to keep moving straight, and it's tucked around that corner. And I feel like it's a bit of a devious move in terms of the level design, because what it's doing is it's presenting its
It's really tempting to go to that other one, right? The one
yeah,
on the left?
but it's a dead end. And I'm just thinking
Yeah,
about why they chose this, because ultimately it wastes. Is it so that they've placed it there because they want the player to take the longer path and then later realize that they can take a shorter path and play the mission again to improve their times? I mean, what do you guys think?
I think it is a way to sort of to trick them into fighting more enemies. Because, if you keep going straight, you go and see a little cliff top where space pirates spawn out of. So I think that's one thing.
Can't you tell what the right path is by using the map?
No, the map doesn't show the tracks. It also doesn't show the obstruction in the way.
Hmm.
I mean, you could scout that far ahead, but there, I mean, as you're saying before, Adrian, there is quite a lot of enemies in this area that it would be somewhat reckless on to do so. So all the forces
Yeah.
are sort of pushing you to take the left-hand path. Hmm. Anyway, did you guys want to move on to the fourth section?
Yeah, the fourth section is where things ease up in terms of enemy count, but in other ways also get stricter, or I'm sorry, more dangerous depending on what you do. That is, if you go into a certain cave, you can trigger a boss in this level.
Mhm.
Good old Colossum. There's actually a hopper mount on the left, so they come in from the side or behind when you're pushing the cart forward. So those are the only other enemies you have to deal with.
Hmm.
Besides that, space pirates usually don't spawn in this area. So it's only if someone, say a scout decides to go and get a mod chip that then they'll trigger Colossum. Also, a pillar falls in the way, so, more opportunities for team play to, hey, someone get this card out of the way so I can keep pushing it.
Hmm. And there is, and there is a track change as well. There isn't there?
Yeah, but you can see right away that it'll be a dead end.
Okay. So with what you're saying earlier, Adrian, you've kind of got so you've got the first section, which is quite straightforward, which is just push the trolley forward. The second section, which is push the trolley forward and be wary of enemies. The third section, which is there's a major tricky longer route that you can take, and there's also more enemies in that third section. And then the fourth section is a bit of a cooldown.
Yeah.
Greg, what about the fifth section?
That's just the straight shot from the last safe house to the big safe house where you collect the cart. Like Adrian said, you can spawn Colossum there, but otherwise it's uneventful.
Hmm. What effect does the Colossus? It is Colossus, isn't it?
Colossum.
Colosson. What effect does the
Because he's a big ball.
what does he
I
have on the
don't
gameplay?
recall him ever attacking the cart. I think he's just there for points, right, Adrian?
Oh, I think he does attack. I think he attacks the other players before he attacks the cart, is usually what
Oh.
he does.
Hmm.
Is it fair to say that all the enemies in this mission seem focused on players rather than the cart?
Not really. The space pirates, I know I've seen them run past me to go to the cart instead.
Okay.
They seem to change depending on position. Like, say, if the cart is within a certain distance, they'll target the cart even if the player is closer. But once it exceeds that range, they'll attack the player because they're closer.
Okay.
Mm. And then from there, it's just a straightforward push into the end point, which is quite similar to the starting point. In that it's a sort of a interior cavernish area that leads straight onto your ship. The idea being that you want to take the cargo carts onto the ship so that they can be taken away for research to understand what the space pirates are doing. Like as we've discussed, it's really engaging and wonderfully cohesive sort of gameplay concept in terms of its
Hmm.
yeah, in terms of many aspects of its design. Like it's just great, but in terms of the fiction, it's like how do you write a story out of that? It's quite challenging, I imagine.
Oh yeah. Oh, and I think Clausen does actually attack the cart because it
Oh,
was smoking when we got it in, but we also killed him really fast because I used a super missile on him. All right, and understanding how you spawn Colossum is also important to know for going for gold.
Greg, I mean that would kind of seem like that's it, done and dusted, mission's over, but that's not quite the case if you're going for all three medals.
well, if you're going for all three medals, you probably want the bonus objective, which will have you. There's two carts in the mission, and you can't push both of them at once. So you're pretty much forced, once you get to the end of the mission, to take a zip line all the way back to the beginning of the mission and start carrying the second cart.
There's that zip
Yeah.
line near the end of the map where like you'll go underneath the whole entire level in an underground path and take you right back to the start. The other thing as well is that yeah,
Yeah.
so when you say that you can't take two, what you mean is that there isn't enough room in the safe houses to contain more than one. There isn't enough room in all the safe houses, maybe in some of them, but I think in there are a couple where you can't store more than one trolley.
And one person
Right.
can only push one trolley. It's not like you can push one trolley into the other and then push both of them. So if you did want to go through only once carrying both trolleys, it would be you'd have to stagger the timing in some kind of complicated cockamamie way.
Hmm.
Yeah. You'd be splitting the group into two.
But when you do go back through, I think some more enemies spawn, but the challenges are very similar.
Hmm.
Yeah. More enemies spawn. I'm pretty sure more things fall in the way because I know when our cart was destroyed the first time, we had to go back and get the remaining cart. Two pillars fell in front of the entrance, so you had to destroy them in order to actually move the cart forward. So
Gee.
yeah, they it is different going, you know, taking that other cart and that more stuff's in the way. They didn't just leave the track completely empty. Of course, Colossan's not going to be there the second time around if you actually wasted him.
So that's, I mean, yeah, that's the level overall. But is there anything that we haven't talked about? We'd often use the loadouts in interesting ways, wouldn't we?
I think we already mentioned the shield, right?
Yeah, I don't think we really said that much about it though.
So the shield in particular, the item you can plant it on the ground and it will stay stationary, or you can throw it onto a player and it sticks to the player so that as the player moves around, the shield moves with them.
So on the shield being a spherical, like a spherical radius around the player that protects them from attacks.
Yeah, and an enemy can run up and stab you right in the gut, and it won't do anything if you have the shield on. What's interesting about this level is that the cart can also be pinned with the shield, so that if you throw a shield onto the cart, then it moves with the cart, and the electrical storm won't damage it, enemies won't damage it, and when you're pushing it, you will not be damaged.
Mm.
Yep, that's pretty much the one of the most powerful strategies you have for that level. So if you're running out of time in order to get it to a safe house, or if there's just a lot of enemies around the cart, pop a shield generator on top of it, and then it's good.
Can you also use the health capsules on on it or not?
I don't remember. I think you could. Yeah,
Hmm.
I remember you can definitely heal the computer in Uplink. You can definitely do that. I'm not sure if you can heal the safe houses though, because I'm pretty sure I saw in the video earlier where I just shoot it through and it bounces off the sides of the walls.
Regarding that, another consequence of doing the second loop is that if the safe houses are damaged at all, then you will have to push a cart through damaged safe houses.
Yep.
So there's the element of suspension which changes the nature of the challenge the second time you move through
Yeah, but if you're good, that didn't happen.
it.
Yeah. So it only gets harder if you were playing worse.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's really cool when games do that, where you play through a level and then the your footsteps affect how you then retread through the area. Um, mm, we talked about that in one of the Super Mario Land videos with coins. With in one of the bonus levels, I can't remember which one it was. We also I talked about it in the Wario Land book quite a bit as well. That does really cool stuff. So um, really cool stuff with how with suspension and adding consequence to the player's actions by making the result of their actions stay in place and then forcing them to retread the area.
Right.
Yeah,
What other strategies and tactics did we use? I mean, so we assigned roles as we discussed before. You know, so we had a scout, a pusher, and a healer slash shielder. We used the shields to protect the cart when we fell into trouble. You know, the more that we played, the more that we found like the shortcuts, and the more we refined these strategies. I can't think there was. I think as well actually is that Greg, the two of us were primarily designated under pushing the cart, but at the same time, if Adrian needed some help, you know, we could very easily and dynamically just very naturally shift roles.
Yeah, it's just as simple as letting go of the cart.
Mm,
Yeah.
and this is one of the really strong points about this game is that you're not locked into a role. You can shift between any roles. You can at any point in time. It gives the player more control over the experience and how they participate in the group, which is quite powerful.
Although one thing we neglected to mention is that people pulling the cart cannot see in front. They can only see back. So they'll be less likely to see oncoming enemies, and they definitely won't see any rocks obstructing the path.
Right. The main thing they'll be able to see is if any troopers are coming up from behind. Things like that.
Mm. I think because intuitively people would think that you'd push something from behind, so there would be less pulling and more pushing. So it's not too much of an issue, except for when you're even when you're if you're reversing and you're pulling the car towards you backwards, going back on the way that you can still see in front of you, which is still where the action is.
But if you have three people pushing the cart, one of them will have to be pulling.
That's true. Yes. What about the people who push the car? Do they miss out on the points? I mean, because they're not shooting anything. They're not, you know, doing any actions like that.
So they get points for pushing the cart, but not a whole lot. Not compared to, getting headshots or fully charged shots on space pirates or hoppers.
I guess the important thing though is that as long as they're pushing the cart, their points are increasing. Whereas if you're shooting, it's
Yeah.
like sort of you get points in bursts. Whereas the points for pushing the cart they accrue slowly, but continuously over time. Any final thoughts on this level?
Right. Other strategies are using proximity bombs, mainly to fend off the troopers. I think you can put them on the cart itself, so that's pretty neat. Because and also has a good, extremely wide detection radius, so they don't have to actually step over the proximity mine to set it off. All they have to do is just be close enough near it that it blows up. You also have a decoy, Samus, which is helpful for distracting enemies, especially the shooting pirates, so
Mm.
that you can take them out and then or push the car past them, or both.
Mm. Yeah, I think that proxy mines or proximity mines really come into play when when you've played the level a few times, you've built up that familiarity and that knowledge of the level, and you know where some groups of enemies will spawn in from, so you can preempt their attacks by placing on the proxies where they will spawn in, and then minimizing the challenge.
Yeah. Also, another interesting thing about the proximity mines is you can actually charge them up to shoot them further. So they're not strictly a close range thing where you throw it out in front of you, kind of like a bomb in Zelda, and hope they step over it. No, you can actually shoot it quite a ways away. So I think you can even hit those space pirates on top of the cliffs there if you aim high enough and charge it long enough. Great thing about the proximity mines is they do 100 points of damage.
They're quite effective.
Yeah, so it's not like missiles where you're actually getting less points. Proximity mines are pretty effective both in combat and for getting all three medals.
Do they combo as well?
Combo in in the sense that they kill multiple enemies.
But do you get the multiplier for the combo? So if you kill more than one enemy at once, if you do a charge shot and you take out, say, two ice hoppers, then you'll get like was 100 times 2. If you were to put a proxy mine down, and two enemies were to be caught up and killed in the blast radius, would you then get a times 2 multiplier on that?
Yeah, it does 100 damage to everything that gets caught in the explosion radius.
Hmm. Just to wrap up, I'm quite curious about how you guys feel about how Blender exists within the campaign overall. Because it's quite a unique mission, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty much the only level of its kind. So that's another thing with Federation Force is they're not afraid to try out a level idea once and only once. Containment is another example of such a thing, where it's the only level in the entire game where you have to trap a certain kind of monster. Blender's similar in that it's the only type where you have to push a cart around. Those carts, the models for those carts, nowhere else in the game except in this level. Of course, I did put it in the deliver and defend category.
Mm.
So the closest, the level, I'm sorry, the mission that's the most similar to Blender is actually Motherlode, but the main difference with that is that it's a giant cannon and not a cart.
Yeah, it's more of a turret-based action sequence, or well, at least for one of the players who man the turret.
Yeah, and the turret automatically moves. Nobody's pushing, so you don't have to. So you don't have to trade off between pushing the cart and killing enemies.
Hmm. Okay. Greg, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I picked this because it seemed like a conspicuously multiplayer mission based on the role swapping.
Greg's right in that Blender is absolutely a more multiplayer focused mission. While it's true that you can do it in single player, um, seeing how this game is primarily focused on the multiplayer, this mission, more so than the others, is really obvious for that. Containment is like that too, where it's more obviously a multiplayer mission.
Yeah, I think for that reason, initially when we were working through this mission, I found it really frustrating because of that initial learning experience. But and that dependence on cooperation and the natural thing where not everyone is always directly focused on the same thing, and so it really, because we all see different things, we all have different stimuli that are coming at us, um, and so yeah, as we were working through it, I found it a bit frustrating because we were working our way through not just how we're going to get through on the mission, but how we're going to get through on the mission together. And but once we start on developing those strategies that we've talked about so far and playing through really effectively, I felt like a real that we're really that our minds and our ideas are connected. And that again, it goes to what you were saying, Adrian, where because of the restrictions and the inherent restrictions and therefore the roles that we each have to play, that it all forces us. It makes the mission more of a multiplayer based mission,
Mm.
a mission on cooperation more than anything else. And in the end, though, this
Yeah,
mission stands out as a really strong mission, which is no doubt,
I could.
which I just said, Greg, is why you chose it.
Yeah.
I would also say that Blender is probably. Uh, mm, you could make an argument for some of the earlier missions, but Blender is, I think, among one of the first where, whether single or multiplayer, the mission has you dividing your attention between multiple things.
Mm, indeed. So once again, Greg and Adrian, thank you for joining me in continuing to discuss Metroid Prime Federation Force. We've discussed in detail two levels so far, being Incursion and Blender. That is my favorite mission and Greg's favorite mission. But we have yet to talk about Adrian's favorite mission. So please stay tuned for the next exciting episode of this series of podcasts. And I think once we've done that particular level, we've still got a lot more to say about this game. So strap yourself in. Bye.